Hi guys, you alright? So today I'm going to be talking about coming out. I'm going to go through all of my coming out stories because, as anyone knows who has been out for a while, coming out doesn't really stop. I'm the kind of person, I meet new people all the time, so obviously there's new coming out stories happening for me all of the time. Even though it doesn't stop, I hope you will see that it does get easier with time. You get more used to it. The first time I came out was about 10 years ago. People are more accepting now as well, so that's probably part of why it's gotten easier. But hopefully you'll see that as the video goes on. Now, before I get into that, make sure you go and hit the subscribe button, click the little notification bell so you get told every time that I upload a new video. Also, feel free to give this video a like if you enjoy it, share it with your friends, and leave me a comment if you're out of the closet or you're thinking about coming out of the closet. Leave me a comment, let's have a discussion down below. So, as I said, the first time I came out was about 10 years ago. I was 14 at the time, 24 now, and I think my first coming out story comes from when I was in school. Obviously I was school age, but there was a boy that I had the tiniest crush on. Like, I think it was the most ridiculous thing. He must have smiled at me in a class one day and I was like, ooh, ooh, ooh.
I'm attracted to you.
It sounds so ridiculous because it was the most tiny of crushes that I have ever seen in the world. But what I decided to do was tell a friend that I must have thought I was pretty close to, someone that I thought I could trust. But obviously this friend then told other people and it spread like wildfire, and before I knew it, out of my control, everyone knew. So I'll probably try and give advice as I go along about different ways I could have handled different situations and how to not get into the situations that I found myself in. But my first bit of advice, if you know someone that's come out to you or you have a feeling that they might be somewhere in the LGBT community, please respect that their coming out should be on their terms. So don't try and force them out if you've just got a feeling that they might be gay. And if they've told you in confidence, just have a bit of respect and don't go blabbing it around to everyone, because it should be, as I say, in their control. It should be their choice how and when they want to come out. So this guy that I had this tiny little crush on obviously found out that somehow I liked him, and he didn't take it too well. Obviously I think what must have been going through his head was, oh, this might make me look gay and that would reflect badly on him. So I remember him not being too kind about it. And obviously through the last 2 years of me being at school, I did receive some bullying, but I'm over that now. I've also made a video about bullying, so you can check that out if you want. So after I told people at school, or people at school had found out, I was on MSN. Yes, these were back in the days of MSN. And this one girl who I was friends with was asking me, had I told my parents yet? I said no. And she replied with, you have to do it now, you have to tell them now. And I just felt so pressured and believed her that I had to do it right there and then. So on the flip side of not pressuring someone that you know to come out, if you yourself are in the process of trying to figure out your sexuality, don't let anyone push you into coming out. It's on your terms, you do it when you want. Don't let anyone force you into it, rush you into it. So anyway, I took this girl's advice that was speaking to me on MSN, and I went downstairs from this very bedroom down into the living room. My mum and my stepdad were there. It was kind of late at night, probably like 11 o'clock I think-ish, and I said, hey look, can I have a word? There's something I want to tell you. And I got a seat and I sat down with them and I said, I'm bi. Ooh, actually I think I put a really weird accent on because I was really nervous about it, because as I say, I was being pushed into something that I wasn't ready to do. I think I put a weird like London kind of accent, I think. But my stepdad's first reaction, because he was hilarious, when I said I'm bi, he said,
Bye.
and not in kind of like a
Get out of this house right now.
kind of way. It was just meant to be like a funny joke. But my mom said, and I will never forget this conversation, she said, does it bother you? And I said, no. And she said, well, that's okay then. We're always gonna love you. That doesn't change anything. And that was quite relieving, to have the support, and obviously to have been this anxious about coming out and to just have support and love from my mom. That was great. So I think the next time I would have come out after that would have been college. And honestly, I don't even remember coming out in in college. I mean, it will have been about 8 years ago now, and it was such a non-issue to me by that point that I don't even remember the story of it. So that's kind of what I mean when I say it gets easier as you go on. It had gotten that much easier by probably like 2 years later that I can't even now remember the story 8 years later. So then I went off to university, and my coming out at uni wasn't necessarily within my choice. I mean, I was in control of it. It was in a game of Never Have I Ever, and a question came up that obviously would have outed me. So then I did have the choice of I can either drink and admit it or not drink and keep quiet. Obviously, I wanted to be open. I can't remember what the question was, and even if I could remember what the question was, it's probably not appropriate for this video. So that's what happened. Obviously, the question and me drinking to the question brought up conversations of sexuality, and I think definitely up until this point in the story, and probably for a while after, I said bi as my sexuality. I don't really know what I say now. I think I say gay just because it's easier, but I mean, sexuality is a lot more complex than that. That's probably an entirely different video, an entirely different conversation. So yeah, that's how the conversation went down at uni. So then we get to another scenario that wasn't necessarily within my control, and that is coming out to my dad. So at the end of my first year of uni, my dad came and picked me up from my halls to move all my stuff back home for the next either couple of weeks or for a bit of summer until I could move into my next flat. But the night before he picked me up, my boyfriend at the time was staying in my halls, and I think my dad arrived at my halls a lot earlier than I expected him to. He had to come all the way from Newcastle to Liverpool, which takes like 3 hours at least in the car, and he arrived really early in the morning. I think he sent me a text saying I'm about half an hour away, but I was asleep so I didn't realise it, and then he rang me once he was outside the door. So obviously me and my boyfriend at the time had to quickly get dressed, and I knew that they were going to have to pass each other. One was going out as the other was coming in, and I was going to have to explain who this person was. Again, I had a choice. I could have said he was anyone, just someone that lived in halls, but no, I wanted to be honest. So as my dad said, "Oh, who was that?" We were both walking up the stairs, so I wasn't even looking him in the face. I didn't know how he was going to react, and I said, "Oh, that's my boyfriend," and I just kept on walking up the stairs to my room in halls. Now, I don't think that would have been my choice for when I'd have come out to him, knowing that I then had a 3-hour car journey ahead of me, sat with both of us with our thoughts on what's going on. We did talk a little bit about it, and it was nothing too bad, so that was coming out to my dad. And the next story that I can remember, I went to a festival probably a few weeks, maybe a month after coming out to my dad, and at this festival I went with one friend who was a female, who still is a female, and we pitched our tents next to this whole group of other people, and we kind of became friends with them. But I don't know whether it was because there was just the two of us, one guy, one girl. They didn't expect anything of my sexuality other than straight. But then it got to a point where we were playing a game, all kind of getting to know each other. It was say your name and say an interesting fact about yourself, and I chose bisexuality as my interesting fact. So I guess that one was completely in my control. I could have said anything, but I chose sexuality, which did seem to kind of really shock them. As I said, apparently they didn't really seem to see anything in me other than straight, so it did kind of shock them, which was an interesting conversation to have. But we all got on really well. Well, we're still all friends on like Facebook and stuff. All these years later, it's like 5 years later now, and I think from then on I can't really remember any other coming out stories that I've got. And that's what I mean about it getting easier and easier. Like the last 5 years I've had multiple different jobs, met so many different people, obviously come out to a lot of them if not all of them, and yet I don't remember any of the stories because it's just part of a conversation. It happens, so it does get easier. If you're someone who is nervous about coming out, just know that you will get used to it over time and it will get a lot easier. Another bit of advice to anyone thinking about coming out, obviously I've heard this said time and time again, but definitely make sure you have a support system there. If your family aren't supportive, that there's somewhere you can go, somewhere you can sleep and live, even if it's just temporary till you get yourself on your feet. But I do have a bit of an opinion on coming out. See, we've currently got this way of coming out where people are anxiously and nervously waiting and building it up of what are my family going to say. To me, that doesn't really work. What I would say, because you hear so many people saying, oh, well, straight people don't have to come out, why do gay people have to come out? But I don't really hear anyone giving any solutions to that. I just hear people asking the question, well, why do we have to? But when is the first time you really know someone who is straight is actually straight? And it's probably when they're talking about someone of the opposite sex, or they tell you they're in a relationship with someone of the opposite opposite sex. So why don't we do that as part of the LGBT community? Why is the first time we come out not when we're talking about someone of the same sex, or we're saying, hey, I'm in a relationship with someone of the same sex, do you want to meet them? Like, that might not necessarily get rid of the anxiety and the nervousness of coming out to someone, but if you're in a relationship the first time that you're telling people, then you've got that emotional support network. They may have somewhere for you to stay potentially. And also, if we're looking for equality, what is one thing that totally sets LGBT people apart from straight people? It's the fact that we come out. So why don't we talk about relationships at the same time that they do when we're in one? That would be my solution. Leave a comment down below if you've got any thoughts on that. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, there's a couple videos across to the right that you can go and click on. Also, there's a subscribe button right down there, so go and subscribe so you don't miss out, because I post new videos every Monday and Wednesday. And I'll see you soon.